Okay, good afternoon, and maybe I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Jumana Haj Ahmed, and I'm the Deputy Representative for the UNICEF Gulf Area Office based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We're very excited about today's webinar as we will be speaking about the critical issue of the impact of climate change on children and the importance of safeguarding the rights of those children and future generations. Many people do not see the link between children and climate change. And they usually don't know that the climate crisis doesn't affect everyone equally. And usually children suffer more than adults, especially those in the poorest communities bearing the biggest burden. So today we have very interesting speakers with us. We will start by hearing from our lead speaker, Paloma Escudero, about how the climate change crisis is a child rights crisis. We will also hear about children's vulnerabilities and about actions that need to be taken to protect children's rights, and also about aspirations for the COP28 to be a child-sensitive and a child-centered COP. After that, we will hear from the UAE Ministry of Education and the COP28 team about their great efforts for the realization of children's rights in the lead up to COP28 and at COP28 and even post COP28. And we will then finally finish with hearing from the children and youth themselves about how climate change is influencing their lives, but more importantly, how children and young people are a power and agency that brings to prevent and address climate change. So without further ado, I'd like to start with our lead speaker, Ms. Paloma Escudero. Thank you, Paloma, for joining us. And Paloma is the first UNICEF Global Special Advisor to advocate for climate action. She was appointed in January 2023 after a decade of being the director of the Division of Global Communications and Advocacy at UNICEF. Paloma brings extensive experience and expertise in the area of communication, digital transformation, fundraising, and advocacy. She has also, prior to being the director for communications and advocacy, she was known within the UNICEF family as the executive director of the Spanish National Committee. Thank you so much, Paloma, for joining us. I know it's quite early there in New York, so really appreciate it. Over to you, Paloma, to really help us understand more about the link between climate change and children and about UNICEF's aspirations for COP28 as it relates to the child rights agenda. Over to you, Paloma.
No, thank you so much. And really, I would like to thank the organizers for this excellent webinar series. And really, it's very important that children's rights are part of the agenda and that anyone in this call, anyone working 24/7 to make COP28 the most inclusive COP, put children's needs and children's rights at the center of any discussions that are going to take place in less than 8 weeks in Dubai. It is not easy, as you said, Jumana, to put the children's face to the climate crisis. And I know I'm sometimes reluctant to be giving big numbers because sometimes the big numbers make us forget that behind the numbers, of course, we have human beings. But in the case of children, really is, I would say, shocking that there is no decision in previous COPs that specifically commit to protect and invest on children, especially the most vulnerable children living at the front line of the worst climate impact. It is very hard to find even technical proposals by governments when children and young people are mentioned beyond the very important engagement, participation, and they are considered priority populations when we talk about how to make sure that any decision regarding climate really takes into account how climate change is changing the lives of billions of children. Let me give you the enormity of the challenges that children are facing around the world. UNICEF released or launched a Children's Climate Risk Index in 2021, where analyzing 8 different components, variables, we stated that 1 billion children live in areas in extremely high risk of suffering hazards. But after last summer, where I imagine those living in your region, you really suffer extreme heat wave, extreme water scarcity. I am living in New York, so we also suffered extreme fires, extreme floods, extreme heat waves. Every single children in the world in the past 12 months have experienced and had to cope with an extreme climate hazard. And we know that the climate crisis is a child right crisis, but we also know that the climate crisis is a health crisis. 90% of the children living in this planet are exposed to air pollution. Climate crisis is a water crisis. 920 million children are exposed to water scarcity. Climate crisis is a protection crisis. 43 million children have been displaced and are living in a different place than versus their hometown, their home, their village, because of climate hazards. And I could continue with a nutrition crisis, an education crisis, a humanitarian crisis. This is why in this COP28, where we are moving from not only dealing with a very important, basic, fundamental issue of how to stop the global warming, we are also now acknowledging that even if we control the global warming, our world has changed and we have to prioritize, we have to invest on the adaptation of our day-to-day to the new realities, the new world we have to live in. And this is why in this COP28, UNICEF and many, many partners all around the world are very clear that this has to be the COP where finally children's vulnerabilities, children needs, young people needs, vulnerabilities have to be at the heart of every decision, from the cover decision of the COP outcome to any decisions regarding global stocktake, global goal for adaptation, or loss and damage. And what are going to be the key focus of this call to action of children-minded organizations for COP? The first of all is to state clearly how the world is committed to prioritize children's rights. And for that, it is extremely important. The last general comment, called General Comment 26, issued by the Committee of the Rights of the Child on September 16. This is a general comment on the impact of environmental degradation on children's rights. They are very clear that at this moment, every single government is responsible for the impact of their actions, of their decisions on the right to healthy environment, the right to live in a safe space, the right to education, the right to be growing up safe, educated, and healthy, despite the increasing impact of the triple planetary crisis in their lives. They provide legal guidance, policy guidance to every government to make sure that they take into account the best interest of the child in every decision they take. It could be legislation, it could be budget, it could be a policy. But that decision is going to affect not only the children of today, but also the children of tomorrow. So intergenerational justice is going to be an enormous focus for all of us when we protect children's rights in any COP decision. But also, they are very clear. Any decision we take within our borders is affecting and impacting children all around the world. I think that with this approach, hopefully, the protection of children's rights is going to be a new area of focus, a new priority that all the world leaders that are visiting Dubai in 8 weeks are going to embrace, are going to champion. And for that, what we are asking is 4 things. One, of course, is to keep working to prevent the global warming, to mitigate. And once we have the outcomes of the global stocktake, where we reflect on the intergenerational justice that will imply any decision to mitigate the impact of climate change, we also hope there will be a very clear way to be delivering on child-responsive NDCs from now on. Now, no NDC mentions children at all. The idea is that really we will have children's markers, children's priorities in the new generation of the NDCs. Of course, also, we are going to be working on how to prioritize children in every decision. Children are hardly mentioned, even if you follow on the media. And when they talk about the impact of the latest climate hazards, there's no recognition, as Jumana said, of the special vulnerabilities of children who are suffering these increasing phenomenal, unprecedented climate disasters. In the past 10 years, 3/4 of the humanitarian appeals of the UN have been linked to climate disasters, and it keeps increasing. And the world at this moment has to react beyond just, let's say, reactive work. We have to make sure that this COP talks about disaster risk reduction, early warning, prevention, as much as, of course, to act on the direct immediate impact of the climate hazards on children. Another area that is going to be important for this COP is going to be how to protect the essential services that the most vulnerable children living in the front lines depend on, how to protect the investment of the global goal of adaptations in primary health care, in nutrition, in water, in sanitation, to make sure that there is a specific and determined decision to make sure that hopefully when the governments, member states honor their funding commitments to the global goal for adaptation, they singly really mark the support to essential services to guarantee that any child exposed to climate hazards, it doesn't matter if they are in rural areas, if they come from vulnerable populations, are fully protected. And finally, and I say this because I know that we have 2 fantastic youth advocates intervening and sharing their experiences in this webinar. It is very important that we all invest in preparing, empowering children and young people to live in a world that has already been changed by the climate crisis. At this moment, we really need to make sure that this COP leaves as a clear legacy, not only the participation of children and young people, but how they should be informing decisions with the voice, with the proposals, and to make sure that young people are at the negotiation table with their governments, deciding and taking decisions about their own future. For us, an inclusive COP cannot leave behind billions and billions of children and young people, and we have high hopes that COP28 will be a COP with a children's face for the first time in the history of COPs. Thank you so much, and looking forward to having a discussion and to hear the rest of really high experts and speakers. Thank you so much, Jumana.
Thank you, Paloma. Thank you very much for this interesting intervention. And now, as I mentioned earlier, we will be hearing also from a number of speakers on the call about their efforts to advance children's rights in preparation for the COP, but also beyond. So I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Asmahan Rami. Dr. Asmahan is an accomplished education and culture professional with over 25 years of experience. Asmahan has a strong commitment to improving the educational experience and promoting cultural awareness. Through her academic journey at Sorbonne University in Paris, she laid the foundation for many exciting positions that she has taken, including the one she has right now. Dr. Asmahan is an educational expert at the Ministry of Education and the Emirates School Establishment. Dr. Asmahan, in her capacity, has advised a number of ministers on education and culture matters, and we're very happy to have you with us. It's really amazing how, for the first time, we will have an education pavilion at COP28. This is really so exciting and a legacy that UAE will leave behind, and I hope we will have it also in the future COPs. Asmahan, we'd love to hear from you. We know that you've been working very hard with your team to on the education and child rights agenda and climate action. We would appreciate it if you can share with us an overview on the work that you have been leading, on the work that the ministry has been pioneering, and really setting an example for future COPs, hopefully. So over to you, Asmahan, to hear about the ministry's efforts.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, maybe for Paloma. Yes, thank you, Jumana, and thank you, Paloma, for this presentation. Indeed, Jumana, the UAE, as you know, recognize the critical role of climate education in empowering children and youth. For us, education is the bedrock upon which environmental awareness, critical thinking, and sustainable behaviors are built, and making them proactive agents of change. So this is the vision of the UAE leadership. This is a quote of His Highness Sheikh Abdullah, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but also the Chairman of the Education Council, but also the Chairman of the Higher Committee for the COP 28. And the Ministry of Education is committed to fostering education and COP28 through the Greening Education Partnership. As you know, UAE is committed to the Greening Education Partnership, and we design our roadmap based on the JEP and the 4 pillars, as you know, of the Greening Education Partnership, by greening learning, greening capacities, schools, and communities. First of all, the Ministry of Education is aiming to integrate climate education into all UAE schools curricula. As you know, in UAE, we have more than 23 different curricula, and we designed the cross-curriculum framework for all these different curricula. And it's already in all the schools from the beginning of this new academic year. So we believe that from the classrooms, this integration will equip the students with the knowledge, the skills, and the values to tackle global changes and nurture their sense of responsibility as global citizens. We also, to enable the implementation of this cross-curriculum, in partnership with UNICEF, we are aiming to train all school principals and at least 2 educators per school, to raise also the voice of educators and children through this COP 28. But also we would want to green the schools, because we believe that by supporting schools to green their own ecosystem, their own community, we will empower children and youth today. And we are laying the foundation for a more sustainable and resilient future. We are aiming to green 50% of UAE school, and we are working in collaboration with FI at the international level, but also with Abu Dhabi agency at the national level. And we believe that that it will inspire the students to be future leaders, because if they green their own school community, for sure they will go and green the wider community. It can start from the schools to make change and to take action in the community. And we want to engage them, to engage all these children, these students, in decision making process and action in their own community. And we tap into their innovation, their creativity, their passion to address the climate crisis. And we hope that we will support the amplification of children participation and action in the country and even worldwide. And we believe that it is essential to provide platform for children and young people to voice their concern, their ideas, their solution, their action regarding climate change. So this is why we are designing an abstract engagement model to link the schools with their community. And we will have 7 guidelines for the 7 Emirates in UAE to map all the programs providers in the community to strengthen this link and collaboration between schools and communities. We believe also that to implement and to enable all these programs, that the collaboration and partnership at the international level with NGOs, with government agency, and with international organizations like UNICEF are essential. And this partnership will facilitate the development of a comprehensive climate education program and ensure that children's rights will be there and participate in changing climate condition. So this is why at the national level we created the UAE National Committee for Greening Education partnership with all the educational entities and all the key stakeholders in the country. And finally, Jumana mentioned it, we will have the first ever greening education hub at this COP28, because we fully support UNICEF's vision of a child-centered COP28, and we are very happy that we will have a specific day for education, children, youth, and skills, the 8th of December. But we want also that the education hub will participate to amplify this children's voice during this COP28 through many initiatives that we have with UNICEF. The first one is the Net Zero Hero. So we will try to empower 30 and select 30 children that will represent UAE children during this COP28. We are working also on an art exhibition, children art exhibition that we will have in the education hub in partnership with UNICEF. We are working also with Alana to have this film to bring all children voices from the world, the children who are impacted by climate change. And we are trying, and we will to have this film into the negotiation rooms. It is not final, but we are pushing for that. But for sure, we will have it in the education hub to show to the decision makers. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Asmahan. And really, we're very excited about our strategic partnership and really making climate education available in every school is an aspiration that every country is is trying to work towards and achieve, and UAE will really set an example for other countries. As you said, Asmahan, and for the first time, there is a day that is dedicated for children. Before, previous COPs had youth. We're very excited that this year, for the first time, in the COP, there will be a dedicated theme for children, youth, education, and skills. And of course, we're also working closely with the COP28 team, and we're very happy that we have with us today Joanna Rumana. Joanna, thanks for joining us. And if I can give a quick background about Joanna, she's a Lebanese-Swedish professional working in the field of children and youth development. Joanna's background experience is mainly in peace building and has specifically focused on conflict-affected and humanitarian settings in the Arab region. Joanna was also part of the drafting and advising team of the first Arab strategy for youth, peace, and security, which is the first of its kind globally. Currently, Joanna is working with the COP28 Presidency Youth Team. She's very passionate about ensuring that children and youth voices are at the front and center in the climate action landscape, and that COP28 delivers ambitious and action-oriented outcomes for the younger generations. Joanna, we're very happy to have you here with us today, and we know that you've been leading a lot of great work to position children at the heart of COP28. I'd like to pass it on to you here to hear about the COP28 presidency team's efforts and work on the children's agenda. Over to you, Joanna.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jumana. Assalamu alaikum jami'an. It's great to be with you today, and thank you so much for having me in this important webinar leading up to COP28 with such stellar colleagues. As Jumana mentioned, my name is Joanna Brumena, and I work with the COP28 Presidency Youth Team, and I'm based here in Dubai. And also thank you so much for the UAE UNRCO office and UNICEF for inviting us to be part of this. And I really can say from the bottom of my heart that you can count on us to really support the children's rights agenda in the changing climate. And I would say as much as we are a youth team, we are also a children's team. So globally, as many of you know, children and youth are increasingly engaged in climate activism, policy making, but their representation in formal climate negotiations is very limited. And efforts to institutionalize children and youth voices are ongoing, but need more advocacy and capacity building for inclusion. So with their links to the on-the-ground work and the grassroots movements and their energy and enthusiasm, young people, including children, are key to raising ambition and making COP28 and future COPs successful. As many of you know, the UAE has appointed Her Excellency Shama Al-Mazroui as the COP28 Youth Climate Champion, also known as the YCC. It's a first of its kind, this position in the COP negotiation cycle, and it really aims to elevate children and youth voices worldwide to bridge the gap between the younger generations and the spaces where decisions are made that are directly impacting their lives and communities. But for us, COP28 really represents an opportunity to speak about the issues and topics that are not really usually spoken about and push the needle forward, including to showcase how climate change affects not only children and youth, but also other vulnerable groups, and really elevating the linkages between children's rights and climate action. So as mentioned earlier, during our 2-week program for COP28, we have dedicated an entire day to focus on youth, children, education, and skills. And I really believe that this signals that the presidency firmly believes that this population segment cannot be left behind any longer, especially in the Arab region, and also that they are disproportionately affected by climate change. And as Jumana and others mentioned, although many COPs have had a children element, this COP really took it one step further to have children mentioned in the thematic program title, which also holds us and others accountable to make sure that this happens successfully. We also want to ensure robust representation of children's voices as a cross-cutting theme across the 2 weeks. And we don't want to restrict children to the one day of 8th of December. And we also want to take into account that children are not a homogeneous group. Children are as diverse as the rest of the population. So an example of this is to make the connection, for example, between climate change and children's health, as mentioned by Paloma earlier. And also something that I'm personally passionate about is the linkages between children and the humanitarian development and peace building nexus. We also aim for children's voices to be part of the World Climate Action Summit, which happens on the 2 first days of COP, which will convene heads of state and governments alongside leaders from the civil society. So we want to ensure that children are part of that process as well, where heads of states and other leaders worldwide are going to be in the same room together. Also, together with our partners such as Ministry of Education, UNICEF, and others, we're also offering spaces in the blue and green zone for children, including the Youth Climate Champion Pavilion, where we're going to have specific and dedicated youth programming. We also have the Youth Hub, and also, as Doctora mentioned, and the Education Hub, which is the biggest pavilion actually in the green zone. So big congratulations for making that happen. Also, policy-wise, we're working with UNICEF specifically to really build support and a momentum for the Declaration on Children, Youth, and Climate Action, and to convey policy and negotiations ambitions on children and climate change to our COP28 negotiations team, similar to what Paloma mentioned earlier as well. And lastly, we want to say that we're so grateful for our partners to really pave the way together with us to make this COP a successful one for children, and that we really deliver concrete and action-oriented and ambitious outcomes that will positively impact children and their communities, not only now, but futures to come. And that is why we're collaborating and supporting initiatives and events during the 2 weeks of COP28, focusing on children with partners such as UNICEF, Ministry of Education, and children and youth themselves. One of them being the General Comment 26, which is a flagship initiative with UNICEF and others that we are happy and gladly to support as the presidency. So that is just a little bit from my end. I'm happy to take any questions in the chat, and thank you so much for giving me this time, and I look forward to seeing you all, inshallah, at COP in Dubai. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and really congrats on all the work done so far, and looking forward for more reflected in concrete commitments made by many parties, hopefully during COP28. So now I would like us to move to our children and youth. And we have with us two young people who are very passionate and committed to the climate action agenda. And we thank them for joining us today, despite school and university. So thanks for joining us, Abdul Muqid and Mariam. And really, the idea here is to hear you, listen to your opinions and thoughts, hear about your aspirations towards COP28. And I'd like here to introduce Mariam Hassan Al-Ghafri. Mariam is also a UNICEF youth advocate. She's 16 years old. She is also a member of the Friends of the Environment Association. Among her several achievements is winning first place in the Innovation Award for the Environment at the level of the Arab world in 2021. So that means you were 13 years old, and being one of the winners of the Environment Award for Children at the Supreme Council for Motherhood and Childhood in the category of technical and scientific projects. Mariam has also created a project that is called Echo of the Environment City, which she's really looking forward to present at COP28. Mariam, we're really excited about having you with us. And please share with us your your passion, your life, and maybe some of your aspirations towards COP. Over to you, Mariam.
Of course. So, hello everyone. I'm Mariam Al Ghafri. As she said, I'm 16 years old. I'm also known as a programmer and an innovator. So, today I want to share with you my journey of self discovery and the importance of youth voice in addressing in climate change. Growing up, I was often labeled as shy, and this label was actually stuck with me from kindergarten through grade 5. And it wasn't until a parent-teacher meeting and my mom asked me, Maryam, why are you shy? I told her I'm not. And then she responded to me back, but why don't you participate in class? I told her that I do participate when the teachers call me. And then she was like, when she asked the whole class a question, why don't you? And I will ask her, or I will respond to her, that she asked the class and she didn't ask me. And from that moment, I realized that I wasn't truly shy. I just underestimated the power of my voice and the importance of active participations. What I'm trying to say is that your voice matters in climate change. And it doesn't matter of who you are. Us as children, we are the least active in climate change, but the most affected. And just to add one information, to UNICEF, children are people who are under 18. And talking about children rights and climate change is not only affecting children in the MENA region, it's affecting children globally. And children should have access to a healthy ecosystem, a clean air and safe water, and a healthy food and a decent housing. They should also be able to learn, play, and be active in places safe from the environmental harm. The commit tells the government that they must take bold steps to children experience their right. And this means is that we should take an urgent action to limit the warming of our planet. It also means making sure that children are not living in poverty or unsafe conditions, and providing access to healthcare, support, and justice for the children who are facing physical and mental issues or harm because of the environmental harm and climate change. And it's very important for the government to take care of the children's views and ideas seriously. Children should be involved when making decisions about the environment and climate change. And the government should give children feedback about how their views were considered. And in fact, this is why the general comment is so important. It's not just for adults to read and act on. It's for us as children to use as well. By better understanding of our rights, how is it connected to the environment and climate change, we can protect our planet and secure a sustainable future for all. And as a UNICEF youth advocate, my team and I are committed to amplifying children's voices to influence decision making in the COP process. We believe that including these perspectives is essential for meaningful changes. And I've witnessed that the impact that we can achieve through advocacy. And children, a fact that I would like to say, children who are born today face climate change challenges 10 more compared those who are born in the 60s. This is what I'm trying to say. This underscores the urgency of climate action. We must unite to climate education a part of to make it part of every children's education and ensure that youth advocate like me continue spreading the message of climate change, which is the Minister of Education are actually working on it now. And what I'm saying is that I'm asking from you guys for your support and collaboration in making climate action in a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Really, so many clear asks from you as a child, but also from your friends about how us adults can and should also take the views of and opinions of children into consideration, especially when it comes to policy making, where the impact is huge. Thanks, Mariam, for sharing your thoughts and views. I'd like us now to hear from Abdul Muqit and introduce him. Abdul Muqit is also a UNICEF youth advocate. He's 22 years old. He is an environmentalist, and he has participated in the World Future Energy Summit in 2013 as a speaker. So also you were very young then when you started, which is really fantastic. And in 2011, Abdul Muqit won Abu Dhabi Award alongside other world-changing personalities for contributing positively to the society by spreading awareness and making a change on the issue of plastic bags. In 2013, he won the Princess Diana Award for inspiring the youth to take action on sustainability and to show and demonstrate that they have a voice to raise on any topic that is relevant to their lives. Abdul Muqit, over to you to hear about your experience and your aspirations for COP28. Obviously, you started very, very young, leading climate action within your society. So would love to hear more from you. Over to you, Abdul Muqit.
Thank you, Ms. Jumana. Good afternoon, everyone present here. I hope you all can hear me clearly. My mic was a bit acting weird, but I'm okay. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Abdul Muqit. I'm 22 years old. And as Ms. Jumana mentioned, I'm one of the 7 UNICEF climate change youth advocates. First, I would like to just start off by giving a small background about me and what I've been doing. I started my campaign against plastic bags in the year 2010. And ever since then, I've been working against single-use plastic bag. And to create a substitute for that, I thought of recycling newspapers. And through that, I got the nickname the paper bag boy, the paper bag boys for recycling newspapers and basically substituting plastic bags. Ever since then, from 2010 up until now, I have done 250 workshops internationally. I have spoken at the United Nations Environment Program Tunza event in Indonesia. I've been to the US twice representing sustainability and environmental conservation and stuff like that. So I've been involved in sustainability from the past 12 to 13 years, and I'm very happy to see that for first time COP being held in the UAE, because this is where I started my campaign, and the fact that children, our youth, are being a lot included in this COP. As Ms. Paloma mentioned in her speech, that youth engagement mainly can be done through climate advocacy. And this is something that I completely believe in, because if the people are not aware of the environmental hazards, and if they're not educated about what the hazards are and what they can do to fight against them, they won't have enough action to take so that we can create a better and more green world. My journey as a UNICEF climate change youth advocate is a prime example of this. So I was appointed as a climate change youth advocate in March of this year, and ever since then I've been part of their capacity building workshops and other events and stuff like that, where we learn about environment from a scientific manner, so we can better understand how we can tackle these problems. One major event that I would like to highlight is in July, where we had an event on climate change and climate anxiety. That is about how mental health of especially these children is being affected by the climate change. So people from less income countries, people who are affected mostly by climate change, the children, the youth of them are actually facing a lot of mental, physiological, and neurological impact. This actually opened up my mind, because I was not aware of this topic before. I was just aware of the recycling, like plastic, water, and stuff like that. But now knowing about how mental health is actually impacted by climate change is something that actually opened my eyes and gave me more experience in climate change. I'm sure that all of you must be aware that through the UNICEF Children's Climate Change Risk Index, almost more than 99%, that means almost every child is being impacted by one of the main climate change hazards, as global warming, climate change, increasing sea level, and more. So I just want to say that it is very evident, especially here in the UAE. July of this year was the hottest day. I'm sure every one of you know. It was about 17.18 degrees Celsius, the global average. So the evidence of climate change and global warming is very evident, and it can be seen all around the world. And since the children are the future and we are the future stakeholders, like we are going to be making the decisions and the major steps to make the environment better, we need to be better informed. And this is why I believe that climate change youth advocacy is extremely important, and we should be involved in this. And this is why I believe that this COP28, the first of its kind, where it has our own Children's Thematic Day, is something amazing. And I'm also very thankful to the Ministry of Education taking like steps for including climate change and the science behind them in the curriculum so that children can be more involved in this. One of the main things that I'm mostly interested in the COP28, the outcomes from this, is from the Loss and Damage Fund, because I believe that one of my main aspirations is global solidarity. So because I believe that on Earth, everyone has to work together. The saving environment is not a one country or one person thing. Everyone has to do their own part and, you know, help the environment. So through the Loss and Damage Fund, the global South countries who are facing a lot of sea level rise and droughts and major climate change impacts, they should be helped out technologically or maybe through funds or stuff like that. So a good climate financial system should be discussed at this COP. I'm really looking forward to the loss and damage aspect of this COP, just like how last year the Asian, African, and Latin American countries got a fund approved. So I believe this COP, inshallah, we'll be getting more positive updates. That is it from me, and thank you so much. I'll be taking any questions if any one of you have any.
Thank you so much, Abdul Muqit. Really appreciate it. Very interesting intervention, and thanks also for your aspirations and for your asks as it relates to the negotiations, the loss and damage agenda as well. By this, we conclude the interventions. I'm looking at the chat to see if there are any questions that the participants have for our speakers. So I don't see any questions per se. So okay, so maybe no additions or no questions from the audience. Maybe here we can give the space to maybe Paloma, if you would like to reflect on particularly also the interventions of the children and youth and our efforts as UNICEF in bringing in the voices of children and youth across our different work streams of work, including advocacy within the negotiations, but also our work in countries to enhance and empower the voice of children and youth.
No, I mean, thank you so much, everyone, for the interventions. I think that I have been in COP27. I have been in COP25. I have been following the COP process now for many years, and no doubt there is going to be a shift in COP28. And I would like to start with the intervention by the Minister of Education, because I imagine that the education pavilion is the biggest, but also I can see that education, green education, is going to be a very strong legacy. I can see that at the end, action, especially on this agenda, it's not only at national level, it's at community level. Young people, children commit to be doing something about the problems they see around them. And on that, when we did, as UNICEF, we did the research in more than 13 countries with 3,000 children and young people, asking what they consider that for them were the key actions they really wanted to do around this issue. And they all, it didn't matter if it was Peru, if it was Cote d'Ivoire, or it was Uzbekistan, there was a commonality on all the answers. The first one is all of them aspire to be jumping into the green economy. They want to have green jobs. They want to make sure that when they move from the learning years to the earning years, they have a chance to be tapping, to be contributing what they consider is going to be a shift on the way the workspace is going to work. In order to do that, all of them are asking to be having meaningful and relevant climate education around climate. Very few of them, especially if they are older than 15, had any type of education preparation in a school. Most of them were looking for that information outside the school, especially digitally. And I think that the message and the importance that this COP is going to be giving to the investment in green education, an amazing example by UAE, as you said, Jumana, is going to be a legacy for forever. And the third one for them is they want to do something to improve the lives of their siblings, of their friends, of their grandparents in their own community. They want to take climate action. Some of them, it's a minority, and we have two amazing examples today as UNICEF youth advocates, but most of them want to take action at community level. And at the heart of all that is the greening education commitment. So I'm very happy to learn that not only on the Education Day on December 8th, but across all the days of COP, we are going to be talking about investment on green skills, investment on education. Joanna, we have been working so closely, and I think that this is, that's the change on how children and young people are going to be, I would say, at the sitting table, and not just as quotes or reference about comments of young people. This has to be present, this has to be visible, and that has to come also from delegations, from member states, from involvement of children and young people at national level. How many times youth advocates, and I was at UAE, you remember, Jumana, a few weeks ago, meeting dozens of youth advocates from the Arab region, and they were saying it is easier for us to be talking, to be engaging, to be even influencing outside our countries. Not so easy for us to be engaged at capital level. And I think that that's going to be extremely important. We know that the message went to all the heads of delegations to make sure that there is national consultations with children and young people, but also that we have an increasing number of young delegates at the negotiation team. All that started with Glasgow. There was some progress in Sharm el-Sheikh, but we really hope that in this COP, we are going to see more and more well-prepared young negotiators, and that will do an extraordinary difference, especially when we are discussing adaptation, loss and damage, but also when we are discussing the global stock take. And I would just say that, we have two brilliant youth advocates, but that generation is expecting from us more than works and more than commitments for investments that will take place in 10, 15 years' time. I think that they are expecting that really they are not going to wait for deliberations. They're not going to wait for postponement of decisions. I think that one of the litmus tests of this COP28 is how young people and children as well react on the final outcomes. And I think that in Sharm el-Sheikh, that was a very complicated COP, but the loss and damage commitment, the solidarity, as we were mentioning today, was something that was followed up afterwards. And I imagine that especially on the agenda on adaptation and the potential progress on loss and damage could be an agenda that the young people also could embrace and could bring from the COP to how to implement at national level. So, Jumana, very, very insightful discussion, and lots of things also for us at UNICEF to be sharing with our teams in the 190 countries where we work, because all of them are highly engaged on the COP process at national level with children and youth advocates.
Thank you so much, Paloma. And before passing it on to Asmahan, maybe I'll just try to respond to the question in the chat, where there's a question about the situation analysis of children and adolescents. And maybe to clarify, this is an approach that we apply in all the countries where UNICEF offices are, and that is, it is basically a research or study that looks at the situation of children in each of the countries. What are the deprivations that they're going through? What are the areas that need to be addressed relating to their education, health, child protection? It usually has a lot of data analysis, but also consultations with the stakeholders, the children, the partners, on the priorities that need to be part of national developmental plans in each country. And when it comes to climate change. Actually, we are in collaboration with the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment and the Youth Climate Champion team, working on a study that looks at the climate landscape analysis, the impact of climate change on children in UAE. The study will also provide policy recommendations and actions, and we plan to launch it together with our partners at COP, inshallah. But usually these studies, we do them with our partners to inform policy and program work that the governments and the countries are leading on. And now I'd like to pass it on to Asmahan. Asmahan, over to you.
Just a few words. Thank you, Paloma, for your word. I just want to add something very important about legacy, because Paloma mentioned the legacy. Just I forgot to say that the sub-names of the Greening Education Hub is legacy, and in Arabic, earth. It's legacy from the land of Zaid, because it's very important for the UAE to give to the world this legacy about climate education, and also about this education hub itself, and to put in the future COP the education always in the forefronts of the future COPs. This is the first ever education hub, but we hope this is not the last. And we will have in all the future COPs an education hub as a legacy.
Thank you so much. And if I can add, Asmahan, and say that one of your key legacies for the COP28 is actually the resource material that will be prepared for the training of school principals and teachers. And the idea here, and we're actually very pleased to be a partner to the Ministry of Education on this, and to be able to contribute to the creation of this legacy, where these resources can be then used by other countries. And through also our network, through our country offices, this is also an area that we would like to bring to other countries, so that we can build on the great work that has been done here in UAE. So we have 1 minute left. I don't see any further questions in the chat. I would like to thank you all for really joining us today. Thanks specifically to Mariam and Abdul Muqeet for being with us and for sharing your thoughts and views. And I guess good luck for all of us in the remaining 2 months ahead of COP. And hopefully we will have indeed a more child-centered COP in December for the COP28. I'd like to also thank our hosts, the Resident Coordinator's Office in UAE, for creating this space for us and for others. And next week, I know they also have at the same time another exciting webinar on gender inequality. So thank you so much, Soraya and team, for this opportunity, and good luck with the rest of the webinars. Thank you to all.